I'm going to ask the members of the committee to go around and introduce themselves very briefly. So my name's Ed Plowden and I'm the chair of this committee.
Don Alexander, Avonmouth and Lawrence Western Councillor.
Kaz Self, Southmead Councillor.
Tim Rippington, Councillor for Brislington East.
Nicholas Coombs, Westbury and Henleys.
My name is Graham Morris, Stockwood Ward Councillor.
Emma Edwards, Councillor for Bishopston and Ashley Down.
Cam Hayward, Councillor for Knoll, subbing for Rob Breyer. I'm sure David will be in a moment.
And David Wilcox will be here in a minute. In the event of an alarm sounding, there's none planned, then the emergency evacuation procedure is leave the room calmly by the lobby area, out the main front door of the city, turn right, walk down the ramp towards the cathedral, and the assembly point is in front of the cathedral. So, as I say, I'd like to welcome the members of the public who are attending in the chamber, but also those watching on YouTube at home or at work. There's David. Just to everyone in the room, this is a place where we have an exchange of views and we ask everyone speaks with courtesy and respect. Let's move on. Apologies for absence and substitutions. We have apologies received from Councillor Rob Breyer, and Cam has already introduced himself as the substitute. We've also had apologies from directors John Smith and Patsy Mellor, so I'm ably assisted by Alex Hearn on my left. Right, in fact. So, have any committee members any interests to declare in items on the agenda? I'll take that as a no. I'm going to, first of all, I move the minutes of the previous meeting of the committee held on the 10th of July as a correct record. Can I have a seconder, please? Kaz, thank you.
Can I just make a few comments on those minutes? I will second them.
Oh, you're seconding the man making some comments. Fine.
If that's okay?
Yes, please.
It was just, there were some actions in public forum that were noted in those minutes. I just wanted to ask, do you have an action tracker or are they going to be followed up? One action that caught my eye was the response about the question whether Stagecoach and First Bus operate differently when approached on a taxi home, and the last person doesn't turn up on...
I have raised that with the West of England Combined Authority, informally and formally, and also with First Bus. Can't say that there's been much of a response to that at the moment, but I know that First Bus are looking into it.
Okay, thanks.
And there was another one with Nicholas Davis and the cycling campaign. We are in dialogue with them. I think this week Nick's been sent a fairly comprehensive response to each of the issues he's got. And we've noted that in the full business case, because of the time required, that was not built in. So any amendments that have been made, some of them made them into the contract itself, some of them haven't, and may be considered as compensation events. But the designs have been looked at, and Nick has been in regular correspondence, and we have sent him a list of what we're doing as a result. I think that was both of them, was it? Actually, I must admit, I don't know if an officer has gone to inspect the accessibility of Haymarket bus stop. Pete Woodhouse, is that... there was an action which I don't know if we've actually done, which is we were going to ask an officer to inspect the Haymarket bus stop serving routes 5 and 8 to make sure that it's been inspected for accessibility. I don't know if that's happened, and you may not either, but could we just make sure that we follow through on that action?
Will do, yeah.
Thanks. Right. So, you've seconded that. Can we...
I will second them, yes.
Okay, and can we just agree that those minutes are a correct record? Yes, just show of hands. No one's saying no, so I'm going to move on. So, public forum. We have a public forum. Sorry, chair's announcements. Thank you. As ever, and I've said this every time I've done chair's announcements, We have had a number of officer decision notices published, and those are all on the internet for people to see. What I'm particularly pleased about is that increasingly we're seeing some of our CRSTS projects that we have agreed coming through that process and beginning to hit the ground even. So that's a good thing to note. The other thing is that the East Bristol Livable Neighbourhood Updated Monitoring and Evaluation Plan is now published as of today, and we are planning more data sets and actually more engagement with the public than was originally anticipated, not least because we want to do as good a job as we possibly can. Now we move on to the public forum. We've got 30 minutes for this. We are going to take, well, there's no public petitions have been received from the meeting under public forum. The statements and the questions and the answers to them have been published. We have 30 minutes for this. We have a number of people who've said they're going to come and speak to their statements. I'd like to do those first because I'm asking everyone if they can try and limit their statements to a minute. And then at least we get more time. We have a known amount of time to go through the questions, which is a bit more of an interactive thing. So let's start. First public statement is from Caroline Dunn, but I can't see her here. So the next statement is from Melissa. Melissa Topping, hi.
Hi. With regard to the EBLN, the ongoing public opposition to this scheme is not simply a matter of inconvenience. It's a profound expression of the community's feeling that it's not been heard. The trial has been extended and the goalposts have been moved, despite clear and consistent feedback from thousands of residents. This approach has eroded public trust in the council's ability to consult and act in the best interest of its citizens. To continue this trial in its current form is to perpetuate a flawed and harmful policy. We urge the Transport Committee to listen to the evidence of lived experience and to recognise the real-world harm being done. Therefore, we request that the East Bristol Livable Neighbourhood Scheme be removed forthwith. Let us take this opportunity to return to the drawing board and embark on a new process of genuine and inclusive co-design, one that prioritises the needs of the most vulnerable and truly creates a city that works for everyone. Thank you.
58 seconds on the dot. Thank you, Melissa. Next, we have Ian Pond representing the Bristol Cycling Campaign. Ian.
Hi, thank you, Chair. As a comment on the Road Safety Task and Finish Group, so Bristol Cycling Campaign, very pleased to be invited to be a stakeholder in that process. We'd like to comment on the fact that the 2041 target we understood had been superseded by a full motion in 2023 by the Green Party, led by the Green Party. And beyond that, we would say that when the strategy comes out, I think the most important thing is that it has a series of annual targets rather than one target in the distant future. What we'd like to see is tangible progress over the period rather than something that's kicked into long grass for another 10, 15 years or wherever. Thank you.
Next is Joe Sargent on behalf of Reclaim Our Buses.
Thanks, Ed. Yeah, I came in on Tuesday and I'm speaking largely to the same statement, but just to say that Bristol City Council, whilst not responsible for getting a franchising model for our buses implemented, as a member, as a constituent authority of WECA, I would hope that there were conversations being had and just would encourage this committee to do what it can to encourage that. What I would also like to comment on, which I haven't included in the statement, is the bus levy and the fact that the bus levy has remained the same since it was brought in, and whether the committee has discussed the possibility of trying to get more funding to be able to provide an increase in the levy that is in line with inflation to allow us to get better buses delivered to Bristol.
Thanks, Joe. Next is Meg Smith.
Thank you. Looking at the bigger picture behind livable neighbourhoods, low traffic neighbourhoods and 15-minute cities, we look at the climate emergency, which is the global reason for bringing these innovations in. There's many millions of us globally that do question this, and going back to 2012, 125 scientists wrote a letter to the UN General Secretary Ban Ki-moon about this. In 2019, 500 scientists replied to Greta Thunberg's impassioned speech about mass extinction, and those scientists, climate scientists, brought several issues to the paper. So basically what they were saying is that natural causes are responsible for global warming and not just human. Global warming is far slower than predicted. Climate policy relies on inadequate models, and that's really important. And that carbon dioxide is not a pollutant. It's a plant food, which is essential to all life on the planet. And photosynthesis is much needed. More CO2 is beneficial to nature and greening the earth. And additional
If you
CO2
can wrap that
in the
up now,
atmosphere
please.
has promised growth of global plant biomass. CO2 is
So,
actually 0.039%,
if you could wrap that up.
okay, of atmospheric gases. It's a trace gas, and if it drops any more, we are in big trouble on this planet. I'm questioning climate emergency, and I'd like there to be much more discussion on it for the millions of us that believe in it. It's not being true.
Thank you, Megs. David Redgewell was attending to speak, but has unfortunately been is now in hospital. So we wish you well if you're watching, David, and get well soon. That's all our statements. So we have plenty of time left then for questions. So first up, we have I can't see Jonathan Hucker anywhere. No. Sam, I believe you're here, but just wanting to observe. You have no follow-up questions, so I don't know if Sam's actually here. So Melissa, you have 3 questions. I think you've seen the answers, and you have up to 2 oral supplementary questions in total, if you wish. Please make sure that it is related to your original question.
Yes, thank you. My first supplementary is with a start date of 14th of April 2025, and you stating that now next spring is when you will start to look at it. How is that a 6-month trial?
I mean, I can speak to that. We're collecting data for 6 months from the... We've been collecting data for about 2 years already, and we are... basically, that was when the vast majority of the measures of the East Bristol livable neighbourhood went in. So that takes us, we'll be collecting data based on that for 6 months. And then it will take us time to look at that data, evaluate it, and decide on the best course forward, and then bring a report to the committee in the spring. I don't know if there's anything else officers would like to add to that.
No, that's all correct. Thanks.
That's still not a 6-month trial, is it? My second supplementary, I asked what you're doing to assure that you're meeting with protected characteristics to alleviate ongoing issues. Your answer you've given me doesn't address this. This isn't doing anything to help with the disabled, elderly and businesses struggling currently, is it? What are you doing for us?
So I'm going to give you a better answer than I gave you on Tuesday, because your answer was, your question was, is everything we've been doing illegal? And I think there's a one-word answer to that. We are, actually this week I've just been reading the Wessel report into accessibility in the local area, and we are preparing a full response to every one of the recommendations of that report. Quite a few of the recommendations emanating from the Wessel report are things that will happen if the scheme is made permanent, and that's an if. And many of those things maybe could have been done in a different order, and I accept that that might be something that we should learn from, that things like some of the drop curbs and other things should have been really put in actually maybe many years ago, let alone as part of the livable neighbourhood. I think it's also worth saying that we will be updating the EQIA. There's a very thorough EQIA done. I'd like to say that the EQIA is based on many people who responded not necessarily through public meetings or private meetings with individual groups, which you're a bit worried about, Melissa, but when people respond through the surveys, we collect the demographic information, and that is reflected in the EQIA to make sure we're hearing the voices of disabled people. I'm hoping that Wessel will do a further report after any measures are made permanent, whatever the status of the scheme. And we will continue to work with Wessel on this and all the other livable neighbourhoods. I think it's also worth saying that we are quite quickly on coming into administration. We started a strategic transport advisory group, which is now jointly chaired between me and the chair of the Bristol Disabilities Equality Forum, which is something then we can look at not only livable neighbourhoods, but everything we're doing to make sure that we're meeting the needs of disabled people. And as part of that, we will be seeking to contact all blue badge holders across Bristol to make sure that their voices are heard, because within that group, we've got a number of representatives, but we want to make sure that those who are driving cars and dependent on them in view of the fact that they have a blue badge are heard throughout our plans for transport. Thank you, Melissa.
Okay, they're still not helping us currently, is it? But
so the next person is, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Satwant Full, attending to ask, you've asked 3 questions, Satwant, about the East Bristol Livable Neighbourhood, and you've got your answers been published, so do let us know what follow-up questions you have in relation to the questions you've asked.
Yes, so I'm going to refer to question 1 and question 3. So the first one for question 1 is, how does the committee justify claiming adequate communication was given according to the Gunning principles when evidence suggests that the consultation was inadequate and failed to offer residents a clear option to outright reject the scheme? And the 3 points of evidence I'm referring to is the Stop EBLN Facebook group has over 3,300 members, the Stop EBLN petition has over 7,038 signatures, and finally, the low 4.4% response rate to the TRO consultation may reflect a lack of awareness rather than acceptance amongst the 95.6% who didn't respond.
Isn't that more or less what your question wasn't originally?
No, because, I mean, for example, the outright rejecting the scheme was never presented as an option.
Right. I don't know if, Pete, you've got anything to say to that?
Not a great deal to add, Chair, from the response that was given, other than to say that you know, the actual engagement and consultation that was undertaken for EBLN was lengthy and significant, and I think I would strongly suspect there's every opportunity within the engagement materials to free text an opinion that the whole scheme as a whole was not favoured. So you know, I suspect that was you know, a plausible option for someone to respond in that way.
Alex.
Thank you, Chair. If I may just add, of course, it is a trial, and there will be a decision to be made in the forthcoming months whether it will be made permanent or removed, and that, of course, residents will have their views, the opportunity to make their views known, which could well be an outright rejection if required, if that's what they want to say.
Did you have another follow-up question, Satman?
Yeah, and the last supplementary question is for question 3 around reduced access in St George aligned with a reduction in council tax. Will the committee admit that, you know, people are suffering from anxiety and feeling imprisoned in be it Barton Hill and St George? I think there's a big misconception that St George is wealthy and is a different set of circumstances compared to Barton Hill, which is not true at all. And living within the low traffic neighbourhood, you know, blocking access to emergency vehicles, residential.
If you could try and make this a question, Satwan.
Yeah, that is the question, which is why isn't a reduced council tax justified given all the issues that it's causing with people in the EBLN areas?
I don't know if you've got a response. I think that's pretty much the same question that you've already had an answer to. I don't know if you've got anything to add other than that was the question you've already asked and you've had an answer, Satman. So,
Well, I don't agree, but it's a review. That's fine.
okay, thank you. I've just had a note that Tristan Beckett might be here. Tristan, did you want to, so again, did you have a follow-up question?
Yeah, thanks for your response to my question. Two supplementaries, perhaps suggestions on that is my concern, it's the same concern, the exit Pall Marsh onto Blacksworth. Could we not, as part of the trial and perhaps indefinitely, yellow box that area of the Blacksworth Road to allow enough for cars to come out diagonally to have that visibility? That strikes me as being a fairly simple solution and cheap solution that could come in fairly quickly.
I think the short answer to that, and I'm looking at officers, is that would require a traffic regulation order. This is only a trial, and there's an awful lot of things that we will be wrapping up to either scrap or improve the EBLN in a traffic regulation order in the future, and I don't think that's something that we could really undertake during the trial.
No,
Do you want to add to that, Sean, and then Pete, and then Sean?
Yeah, I was just going to say, we'll be reviewing, this this junction along with, the full scheme, and as you say, Ed, if there are some amendments that need a TRO, they will obviously be progressed in time with that TRO when it's done.
That does worry me though, because it's such a dangerous.
If you want to wait for a moment, you're getting another answer, and that might be a good thing.
Yeah, so just to say, I look after the traffic signals team as well, so they sit within my service, and I'm very aware that the traffic signal team have been proactively looking at this junction in recent weeks, trying to look at the background software, Scoot and so on, to try and help with the junction, to make sure that we're looking after the safety of it.
That's the junction of Blacksworth and Church Road, though, isn't
Yes.
it? I'm talking about the junction of Pall Marsh and Blacksworth.
Okay, that would have to be picked up as part of the trial.
Nedham Road can only come out there unless, and this is my second supplementary question, you opened up Nedham Road to allow us to go down, right the way down and come out by Nedham Park to turn right down there. Get a simple solution.
I think that's one where we'll take that on board, and I'd urge you to put that in writing when we consult later on this year. We've got a big survey coming out in the next few weeks, and then there'll be a whole load of opportunities to consult on suggestions like that, but I'm not sure we could commit to something like that at the moment, because at the moment all the measures hang together. So I think that's something that we'd definitely like to take on board, but there's opportunity to feed that in the coming months. Thanks very much for your sort of constructive suggestions. Next up, Dan.
Hi there. Yeah, I've got a supplementary to my question on list as 14. I was really hoping for a substantive answer to why the cycle path had been designed as it is. I mean, currently Richmond Hill and Park Place both join onto Queen's Road. The new design has a single junction leading from Queen's Road onto Park Place, which I think doesn't work very well. And I was hoping to understand what constraints had led to that design. Is that possible to get a substantive answer to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think as the answer as given it describes the process we go through in terms of that design. I can take away, we can respond with a bit more detail as to the constraints of that has led to this design, if that's helpful.
Yes, please. Yeah, and to question 15.
So, I just want to make sure that's noted as an action, so that next time Kaz or anyone else can say, what have you actually done around this action? So, Dan, that's a note.
Cool. And question 15 in the list. If currently having cyclists and pedestrians meeting at a blind corner is acceptable and doesn't violate any of the guidelines, doesn't that indicate that there's something wrong with the guidelines and that they need to be updated to more accurately represent prevent dangerous corners between pedestrians and cyclists.
Yeah, I think as the response says, the Active Travel England part of a benefits and outcomes panel that help us assess our schemes as they come forward, and they have not raised that particular concern. So whether that's a problem with the design or a problem with the design guidance, I guess that's the debate to be had. But as far as we're concerned, the scheme has got Active Travel England's approval, and therefore should be meeting the guidelines.
I think I'd add to that, Dan, that they're guidelines, and the problem with guidelines is when they hit the real world, you really have to, we rely on the expertise of our designers to do the best they can to make the guidelines fit the real world as quickly as possible. And that's not always a very easy process. And I think there's other people in the public gallery right now that we've been discussing this with at some length. So we do our best to follow the guidelines. And I'm sure that Active Travel England at some point in the future will be reviewing the guidelines. Alex.
Thank you, Chair. Just to say that, as with other schemes, there'll be an opportunity for a road safety audit after implementation. If there's a need to review it, we can.
Dave's not here, so Bristol Cycling Campaign. Ian, you're next.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for the answer that's been published and the acknowledgement that the process in this case was not ideal. We accept the offer of a meeting with officers and with the Bristol Walking Alliance to look at the plans. So look forward to hearing a date for that. We would request a copy of the road safety audit for that junction in advance of that meeting so that we can review that. And we note that the changes were made to address pedestrian concerns, but would ask why the needs of cyclists to safely negotiate the junction were not considered. Thank you.
Yeah, just say we will meet in due course. We'll get a date together and we'll send out that safety audit. So we can discuss that at the same time.
I think it's difficult to answer that question without you seeing the road safety audit, and I'm imagining that you can take that into a meeting that we've offered. So hopefully that's not the best. We're not able to answer that kind of off the cuff at the moment, but hopefully we'll be able to answer that question. Next we have Alan Morris. Can't see Alan here. No, I'm assuming Rosa Kell isn't here. Josh Clark isn't here. So Matt Sanders. Welcome back, Matt.
Yes, I've got a supplementary question about Cumberland Road Busgate, surprisingly enough. Question for Sean Taylor, Head of Highways. At the last transport meeting, Mr. Taylor said the enforcement is now dropped considerably and is now in line with other bus gates in the city, but the officer response to Councillor Hucker's question 1 has a chart which shows this is obviously not true, and I hope councillors will have a look at that. This year, Cumberland Road has so far had nearly 15,000 PCNs, which is more than 3 times the average of the other bus gates. But my question is about the illegal yellow signs. So for the 8th of July full council, I pointed out that all the yellow signs at Cumberland Road Busgate are illegal because the TSRGD only permits temporary signage like this to remain in place for a maximum of 6 months, but these have been here for 2 years. 2 days later, at the Transport Committee, Mr. Taylor said these exact words: "We're actually in the process of making some of those changes to the information signs, changing to permanent signs, because that's what you would do as you review the signing, which is up there temporary to help enforce the bus gate." So this implies you always intended to change the yellow signs, and this is what you normally do. But these signs have been illegally placed for 18 months, and similar signs, yellow signs in the city centre, have now been illegal for nearly 5 years. And the yellow signs at the EBLN bus gates have already exceeded the 6-month period, maximum period. So my question is, why are you only doing this review now after the signs have been illegal for 18 months? And why have you not done the same thing in the city centre, where they've been illegal for 5 years?
Yeah, thank you. As we've said previously, the signs are guidance. They're not illegal. They're not a legal requirement. So they're not illegal by being still up there. They obviously provide additional information to users. I'm not aware of the city centre signs, but I will take that away. So thank you for raising that with us. I can ask the team to look into that. The signs on Cumberland Road, the designs have been sent out literally in the last few hours to members, and also we sent them to you, Matt, because we promised we would send those signs which are going to be changed to yourself, so that's been sent to yourself as well. So yeah, the intention is to change those signs, and the order is with the contractor to undertake that work.
And I'm going to add that I'm sure some time ago you were advocating for more yellow signs to make it more obvious, Matt. So I may have got that wrong, and I'm sorry, because this is a level of detail that I do my best to follow. But I'm sure some time ago you were saying that we needed really good yellow signs to make sure that people could see this and be aware.
No, I was talking about the yellow backing boards that go behind the blue discs, which you have at all the other bus gates, but not Cumberland Road. The blue discs are put on a yellow rectangle, so that's a completely different thing.
Okay.
This is yellow signs with black writing, which are illegal. They exceeded the period in the TSRGD. Just because they aren't required for a bus gate doesn't stop them being illegal roadside clutter. So,
did you have a second? Is this turning into a question now?
Yes, okay. The second one's slightly different. So at the same 8th of July meeting of full council, the Transport Chair read out an officer response which said the sign sizes were increased at EBLN because there was a scope to do so. Cumberland Road has site-specific engineering and road safety constraints that have been explained previously, which prohibit the installation of larger signs. So that was the officer response to full council. So I challenged that at the last Transport Committee and requested that officers provide the specific technical restraints which apply to each of the 18 signs on this chart, which I showed you all last time and gave you a copy. And officers couldn't respond on the day, but I agreed to receive a written response, but that never came. So I resubmitted that question for today's meeting, but officers have still not provided any technical reasons and have just written, we have previously provided you with the engineering reasons why the bus gate signage can not be larger. We have investigated and checked that the remaining signage meets the minimum requirements for the TSRGD. But you've still not provided any specific engineering reasons for the vast majority of the signs. So I didn't ask if they meet the minimum requirements of the TSRGD. I asked why they didn't comply with the guidance in the traffic signs manual. You still provided no reasons, so I must conclude that senior officers deliberately furnished the Transport Chair with false information and induced him to mislead full council on 8th of July 2025. So my question for Mr. Taylor is, you say you're in the process of finalising the new signage plans for Cumberland Road. Will the new signs comply with the guidance in the traffic signs manual, or have you encountered any site-specific reasons why they cannot?
Okay. The new signs have been designed to the traffic signs manual. As far as we're concerned, they are able to be installed. Until we install, we won't know for sure if there's any engineering reasons why utilities in the footways and so on. But as it stands at the moment, that is our intention, and that is how it's been designed to TRSGD.
And not just TSRGD, but the traffic signs manual guidance, that you seem to be saying yes.
As I said, the designs will comply with the guidance.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
And I think Sean's just said that you've actually got the proposal for the new signs in your email inbox as of today. Sorry that I'm going to say that I'm going to take responsibility that that sat in my inbox asking if it could be released for several days. So the fact that it's only gone today is really due to my email inbox management. Sure that I take the heat off of officers for that particular email being a little bit later than we would have liked. Okay, that's the end of public forum. Is there anyone here who submitted a question and is wanting to ask a follow-up question just before we move on? I'll take that as a no, and let's move on to Nick.
Sorry, I probably should have asked as a question to your notices earlier, but I didn't appreciate it at the time until the public forum. Should we have a discussion about the extension of the EBLN trial? You've said it was an officer decision, but I can't see it on the officer decision log, or maybe I got confused.
No, sorry, that was two separate items. One is that there's a whole load of ODNs that we've published since the last committee, and that is us exercising the delegated authority given by either this committee or previously the Cabinet. And then also, we've today published some more details about how we're going to be evaluating EBLN. That's not an officer delegated decision.
All right, so so the monitoring strategy, I found that one, and it wasn't clear. Has the trial period been extended from 6 months to 12 months?
The trial period started on the 12th of April and will run for 6 months, at which point all the data will be then put into that has been collected throughout and before, because we're doing before and after, be collected, collated, analysed, and then released. And the aim for that is to release it in December.
Okay, and there was a section of the report that said that there should be an overall reduction in motor vehicles within 12 months of the trial being implemented. So that's not relevant to the decision, though, is it? That part of the strategy.
I don't really understand your question, I'm sorry.
Page 6 of the strategy says the monitor area should see an overall reduction of motor vehicles within 12 months of the trial being implemented, but that's irrelevant to the monitoring strategy, right? Because the monitoring is, there's a guillotine at 6 months where we make the decision.
We've had to balance a whole number of different factors. Listening to the public gallery today, there's people who are experiencing difficulties because of the trial. And when I speak to some transport professionals, they think something like this takes up to 2 years to have its effect. So we've got to sort of try and balance those different factors. Tim, you had your hand up.
Yeah, Chair, could you just confirm where the details are being published of is it on the EBLN website itself? Or?
I believe, I haven't looked myself this afternoon, but I believe it's on the EBLN website, yes. I think actually, Nick, you've just found that, so you can tell Tim.
I did. I found that on the EBLN website on the City Council. Is at the bottom, freshly added in. But as a trial, as a strategy to monitor a trial, I thought that a start date and an end date should have been included in that, and I didn't see that. So I can understand how some of our correspondents have misunderstood that it is still a 6-month trial rather than 12 months has been talked about today.
The reality of it is that it took quite a long time to install it, so we'll have a lot more data, and I would expect and I anticipate that we'll be annotating individual events alongside the numerical data, so that we can give more of a rich picture to the numerical data. Shall we move on? Caroline, yes, okay. What I don't want to do is turn off your microphone. Last time I said that I'd give you a little bit of latitude. You spoke for over 3 minutes. So if, most people who come here, and in fact everyone who's spoken to date, has managed to keep it to a minute or thereabouts. So if you could do your very best, please, Caroline, to keep this to about...
Due to the heart failure, I get breathless speaking more than 2 or 3 sentences, especially when under stress, and that's why it takes me some time. Thank you for allowing me to make my statement. Your plans talk of active travel, walking and wheels, by which you mean bicycles, spending all your money on them, making cycleways that can be dangerous to some disabled people. There are other wheels needing money, wheelchairs, disability scooters and relators, also cars needing disabled bays. Why are 2 wheels good and 4 wheels bad? Yet, very Little money has so far been spent on drop curbs, ramps, external lifts, and disabled parking has been removed. I was recently in Eyemouth, and on the side of the harbour was an external lift going up the height of a footbridge. If it could take all the North Sea weather that the North Sea can throw at Eyemouth, surely can we not have two on the Portway so disabled and old people can cross the road in safety to Sharhampton Station? Don't say there isn't any money. You have plenty of money for bicycles. Just start playing fair and redistribute. Also, recently, I tried to work out a bus journey and I couldn't do it because it was using words like multimodal. What does that mean? I worked it out that this includes walking, quite a bit of walking for me and with my blue badge. So I couldn't do that. I was trying first bus website. It really was not easy to use. Many people can't understand your jargon. Can we please have more common sense, more of the money, and more understandable language? Please, can we have more?
Thanks, Caroline. That's thank you. Let's move on to the agenda item number 7, the Road Safety Task and Finish Group. The purpose of this report is to establish a member task and finish group for the development of the road safety strategy and associated terms of reference. This is a non-key decision report, so I'm going to invite I think Mark, actually, to say, introduce and outline the key elements of the report.
Thank you, Chair. As you say, this is a report to set up a task and finish group to help us write the next road safety strategy. The current one ran out in 2024, so there's a need to create a new one so that we can move forward and try to achieve our casualty reduction targets and really embed safe systems across all areas of work. So the terms of reference of the task and finish group, proposed terms of reference, are attached to the report. Hopefully everyone's had a chance to read that, and the general outline of what we hope to achieve and how we hope to achieve it. I think that's everything's in the report, so hopefully everyone's had a chance to read it. Happy to take any questions on it.
Thanks very much. Does anyone like to say anything? David, as the person who led the almost 2 years ago now, amazingly, the Vision Zero, which was passed unanimously by full council, would you like to say a few words?
Over 2 years ago, Chair, July 2023. So why do we need a road safety task and finish group? In 2024, there were 1,633 fatalities in the UK on our roads, which is an increase of 1% on 2023. 29,537 people were killed or seriously injured on our roads, which is flatline from 2023, so there's no change. That's an average of 5 people per day killed on our roads. The overwhelming majority of road fatalities involve occupants of private motor vehicles, accounting for 55% of the deaths. This is the crucial reason we must prioritise reducing these statistics. Making roads safer for car occupants directly results in safer conditions for all road users. In comparison, pedestrians represent 15%, motorcyclists 13%, and cyclists 11% of all KSI statistics. It is imperative we take action. We cannot accept these numbers of people killed or seriously injured as the price of existing in the 21st century. Other cities like Oslo and Helsinki have delivered on a target of 0 road casualties, so it can be done. And other cities in the UK like London and Edinburgh are on a path to just that. These statistics are flatlined with no major reduction year on year, other than during the COVID pandemic when travel was very limited, and no political party wants to see that to happen again. In July 2023, this council came together with a unanimous vote to embrace a Vision Zero approach aimed at reducing road deaths to 0 by 2030. As councillors, we must be committed to working collaboratively to make this vision a reality for all residents of Bristol.
Thank you, David. Does anyone have any questions for Mark or anything they'd like to say? Kath?
Yes, so there's no doubt that this strategy has to be updated. 2024 when it ran out, so I think I support the idea of getting it in place as soon as possible. And I think the report sort of says it could be in place by March 2026. So I think that's a very sort of short period of time. Obviously, we'd like to get it in place much quicker than that. Looking at the strategy from 2014, whenever it was, it's got some very nice pictures of George Ferguson and stuff and things about 20-mile-an-hour streets, and it's all good stuff, sort of things we should be doing. And we have, of course, implemented a lot of 20-mile-an-hour streets. But as was mentioned, the road casualty statistics are pretty much sort of flatlined. There doesn't seem to be a huge improvement. So I would hope that our strategy would, try to understand first of all that the where we, the modes of transport have changed. We've got e-mobility. We've got different things in terms of our city. We have made some progress with cycle lanes and 20-mile zones. It could be that maybe traffic enforcement might be an issue. And quite rightly, David referred to Helsinki, which is something that we should aspire to. And I think, fully support the Vision Zero. But looking at Helsinki, I did have a quick look actually, and I saw it had some very interesting travel modes in terms of autonomous buses. And to me, that sounds the sort of thing that we ought to be maybe sort of think about in the future, because these things are coming whether we like it or not. And they may offer solutions to people to get around this city, as well as helping us to reduce the casualties. So those are my comments really. Yes, we need the updated strategy and we need to get in place as soon as possible. And that's my main concern, I think, is the task and finish groups need to be focusing on getting this strategy rewritten. And when I look at what we had in 2013, 2014, I don't think it would actually take too much work to get something new in place. And I'm a bit concerned about maybe we might spend too much time engaging with stakeholders, and just that's my main concern. But yeah.
I'm just a bit confused there, Kaz, because I think, as you rightly point out, things have changed quite a lot since 2014. We've one of the things that seems to be driving the increase in casualties is micromobility and the e-scooters. We've got autonomous vehicles around the corner. In fact, although the Labour government is promising to devolve power, it seems to be actually removing the power of us to be able to licence for ourselves autonomous taxis. As a proposal that seems to be coming up. So I think there's actually quite a lot of change that's happened since 2014, and I do think it's appropriate that we should just take that time to get this right for another 10 or whatever period we decide strategy. Kaz, do come back, and then after that I've got
yes,
Emma.
just on that point you make, there was a consultation on autonomous vehicles, and I did participate in that as part of the Public Safety and Protection Committee. So, I take your point that, on that one, and I think hopefully there's some maybe scope for influencing the way that goes, but, they are coming very soon, and that's the thing that struck me. And we need to grasp that and do what we can to make sure that they help people get around the city and are also safe.
I think we can all agree on that. That's why we're here, isn't it? Emma, then Tim.
Thank you. I'm very excited about this. I think one of the reasons why I think it would be good to be a task and finish group is obviously that's member-led, cross-party member-led. And, one of the things I've always found quite difficult, and I'm not blaming officers for this, it's just the way the system is you'll get one road or two roads with a junction or near a school where you just get the same amount of case with this road is dangerous, this road is dangerous, there was a near miss, a child nearly got hit the other day. But because there hasn't actually been a fatality there, we are told, well, there's nothing really we can do about it. So it's almost like we're waiting for people to have accidents before we tackle road safety, which to me feels a bit the wrong way around and not the way to actually make roads safer. You don't want those accidents to happen in the first place. And as I say, I don't think that's the fault of officers. I think that's just how the system is. So one of the things by councillors being there is that they will know all of those hotspots in their wards and their colleagues' hotspots in their wards, not hotspots, but, you know, those areas where they're constantly getting casework. And be able to look at those. That's what I'm really hoping will happen in this task and finish group. I did have one little question. Councillor Self did touch on it with micromobility, but one of the stakeholders I would really like to see involved in this is something around the gig economy. I don't know, maybe the Independent Workers Union, IWGB, they work a lot with the food delivery drivers. I know these people can be very vulnerable. They're often working money to time, so you see them whizzing around. It's not safe for people, it's not safe for them, and I would love to see us do some work with them to make the road safer, because I can see that is an issue. Thank you.
I can just give a little bit of reassurance on that. We had a meeting yesterday, I think.
Marvellous.
With Rue and others where we attended. I think it was down on the centre. One of my team attended. I think the police were there as well. So I think it was something that was set up, and we managed to get along and start talking to them and find out some of those questions.
Great. Well, I look forward to reading the results of that. That's fantastic. Thank you.
And Mark, I guess, Mark and David, if this goes ahead and you're chairing it, I'm assuming that we'd just do a very quick review of all the stakeholders, and this doesn't set everything in. This is an initial document rather than setting everything in stone for good. Okay, so it's got Tim and Don.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, I think the proof of the pudding with this will obviously be, you know, what comes out of it. And I think it's important that if we're going to put the time into this, that we need to have something that comes out that is better than what's gone before, but also is actually something that can be implemented and not pie in the sky. So I'm hoping that officers have had quite a long time since that resolution that David talked about was passed at full council. I'm hoping a lot of thought has gone into how we could do this differently if we need to do it differently, and I hope we don't start reinventing the wheel from scratch and having many meetings, you know, discussing what could or what might be, but get some real concrete proposals on how we can take this forward and make it better, because it's certainly, you know, the outcomes, everybody shares the desired outcomes of this, which is to prevent all road accidents. But yeah, obviously it's a long time, 2024, since we've had this strategy, so at the same time we'd like to see this happen as quickly as possible.
I think we all agree, and I apologise that not much has happened in the last year, but I can't make any comment about the year before that, because that was a different administration. Don.
Thanks. Yeah, no, it is a shame nothing's happened in the past year, given this is extremely urgent. Also, as Mark's demonstrated, officers are regularly consult with stakeholder groups, from the cycling campaign to disability groups, walking laws, etc., etc. It doesn't need councillors to do that. I do accept that the task and finish group would offer councillors the opportunity to learn about road safety from someone like Mark, who's had years of involvement in that, leads on it. I also accept that it's a chance for councillors to raise their particular ward issues, which again is valuable. But this is a very, very urgent piece of work, and I really think that we're going to delay it now for a year. I can see it being a year by the time these meetings are concluded and we have a document in front of us. I would much prefer that officers produced a document and brought it to us for our consideration as soon as possible.
Okay. I think what I'm hearing is a need to really crack on and deliver this task and finish group and get on with it as soon as possible. But I also think that it's good to take enough time to get it right. Like you say, the previous one was a 10-year horizon, and quite a lot of it actually hasn't been done for all sorts of reasons, including the need to make really quite swinging cuts across all budgets. So I'm going to suggest, I'm going to move. Do I have to move something? Yeah, so I'm going to move that we set up this task and finish group as stated, and ask for a seconder. David, funnily enough. And can we have a vote by putting up your hand if you support the establishment of this task and finish group? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Thanks very much, and thanks, Mark. And look forward to moving swiftly through a task and finish group and getting to a strategy that we can hopefully all get behind in short order. No pressure at all, David and Mark.
Of course.
Right, agenda item 8, the Active Travel Fund tranches 5 and 6 bid. The purpose of this report is to seek approval, accept and spend £2.286807 million funding from the Active Travel Fund tranche 5 and 6. This will be used to develop and deliver several active travel projects and develop and deliver. And I think that's the crucial thing here. I think a number of people have been a bit confused because some of the projects are now at the delivery phase and some of them at the development phase. This does both. Sean? No, sorry. Pete, are you going to introduce this report?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so the schemes or the programme of schemes that are proposed for expenditure as part of this programme, as Chair has said, there's a mix of delivery and development. So there is a proposal project to remove the motorised traffic from Prince Street Bridge. That is a project that is intended to be delivered within the context of this funding stream. The next main infrastructure project is actually a project for development only. So that's to develop the business cases for a scheme to deliver walking and cycling improvements alongside the A4 Bath bridges. So a scheme sort of long in the offing, but we've obviously want to get the business case developed to enable us to access further future funding for delivery later on. The programme also seeks to extend our secure cycle storage programme. So that's on-street cycle hangers, another 19 cycle hangers proposed. We also would like to deliver 2 new school streets and continue with our behaviour change programme, which includes the travel to work survey. I think I just want to dwell a little bit on the Prince Street Bridge project specifically, because there's been a slight change since this report was written in terms of the delivery deadlines for all of the ATF 5/6. We understand from the DFT that we now need to deliver these by March 2028 rather than March 2027. And the reason to flag that is, as stated in the report, the project itself would deliver significant walking and cycling benefits, as contained in the report, with a very high BCR of over 14 in terms of its AMAT BCR. That's the active travel mode appraisal. But there is an associated impact of closing the bridge on general traffic or the traffic network. And I think, and as stated in the report, it's very important that we flag to the committee that elements of that scheme have been identified to potentially cause congestion and disruption until such time as traffic flows have reduced through modal shift. Now, obviously, this scheme and many others that we're working on, the CRSTS programme largely, is about modal shift. So in the context of that, it's important to flag that there is some concern about impact, particularly around access to Spike Island, and particularly so in the context of other roadworks in the area. We are obviously working on schemes in Redcliffe and Bedminster Bridges, and so the change in the deadline actually allows us to slightly mitigate some of the concerns about when this would need to be installed. So we could actually do it after the other schemes in the area have been completed and therefore mitigate some of the impact during those works. It doesn't change, obviously, the overall congestion impact. That will be modelled as part of the scheme development so that we understand better that the impacts on the network and where traffic is likely to be diverted to. So that can all help the shaping of the project as it moves forward. So I just wanted to talk specifically about about that and that change in the deadline. But other than that, hopefully it's clear in the paper what we're proposing.
And I think I'd just like to add to that I've made it fairly clear to officers that although this is closing this bridge to motorised traffic is part of the harbour strategy, and which has been agreed, I am very concerned about the cumulative impact locally of a number of the things we're doing, particularly for Spike Island and Mopping Wharf. And although I'm very pleased actually to see this coming forward, because it was when I was an officer, it was on a project that I delivered that first made it into shuttle working, and then 7 years later was another project I delivered as an officer to improve the public realm and make it even safer and give more clarity to people using the active side of the bridge, but still not enough as to how to share the space. So I have asked officers that any designs are not irreversible and don't permanently stop motorised traffic using the bridge in case of unplanned events on the network, and also while we think about the cumulative impact on that very small geographic area. And I think that's also engineering-wise an important thing to do because it's a heritage and sensitive bridge. I think it's also worth noting, however, that it will never be a proper, fully authorised diversionary route because it can't take buses or HGVs. So we will always need diversionary routes in place in its place. And actually, Sean, as you maintain the kind of, I don't know if there's anything you want to add as this sort of statutory traffic manager who's has to maintain the expeditious flow of traffic, which does include walking and cycling. I think Pete's done a really good job of sort of airing those pressures and that duty that you have, which is a statutory duty. But I don't know if there's anything else you'd like to just add to what Pete, I think, has quite well explained already.
Thank you, Chair. No, actually, I think Pete did a very, very good job, and I'm very grateful for the way he put that forward. I mean, my role as a statutory traffic manager is to highlight if we're potentially going to cause congestion in the city. I got a statutory duty to inform you. This is why that's in the paper. You know, at the end of the day, if the committee decides to go ahead with the scheme, you're doing it informed. That's all I'm trying to do.
Lovely and succinct. Thank you, Sean. Tim, then Nick.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I'm going to raise another part of this paper. I'm absolutely delighted to see in here the Bath Road scheme will be getting looked at. I actually proposed closing one of the lanes on the Bath Road during the pandemic to enable more people to walk up and down there. Unfortunately, nobody agreed with me at the time. I think it would have been a very good thing to do. But anybody coming into Bristol, if we're talking about mode shift and encouraging modal shift, that pathway up and down the Bath Road is absolutely horrendous for cyclists and pedestrians, you know. And if you want to encourage more people to come in from my area, Brislington, then doing something about that that footpath stroke cycleway is absolutely imperative. I appreciate it's going to cost money because the only way you're going to be able to do this is to widen outwards. There are bridges over the railway, that kind of thing. But yeah, absolutely delighted to see that scheme is in there, and let's hope we come up with a really good solution and then find the money to implement it.
I personally think it's quite shocking that with the enormous amount of investment going into Temple Quarter, this hasn't ever found its way into the scope of any of the development projects happening there. So it's all the more important with those developments happening that we do something to address this long-standing problem. Thank you for your support there, Tim. Nick.
Thank you. There's a lot to support in terms of active travel. Certainly buying the cycle hangers in bulk seems to have gotten the price down, and mode shift through education is a great idea. The Princess Street Bridge as well. Looking at that structure, it seems pretty obvious to turn that into a walking and cycling bridge, but that does lead to the issue of that eastern end of Spike Island being just a big cul-de-sac accessed only from almost Temple Meads, given the changes to Bedminster Bridge. So I wonder if now's the time to look again at the Cumberland Road bus gate, because we've seen in the questions earlier that it's still being contravened. It's not getting better as we thought it would do, that there's an average of 1,800 cars going through it every month. So it's not working in policy terms, but it is an opportunity to access that bit of Spike Island which would be otherwise marooned by this scheme. So I was actually reassured by your introduction, Ed, that you're also concerned about accessibility to this half of Spike Island, and you wanted a reversible intervention. I wonder if we could ask that this intervention is paired with a study of the whole of Spike Island, of how access works now with all of the other changes that we've proposed and are in the process of implementing, and consider if there is still a need for a bus gate given the traffic flows changing from all of the other interventions.
I think that's something we need to go into with a lot of caution, because things like the Bedminster Bridges project will have been modelled with the assumption that that's there. I did hear Pete saying that there will be modelling as to the effect of Prince Street Bridge, and I'm assuming that the cumulative impact, particularly on Spike Island, will be part of that modelling.
Yeah, fundamentally it will. I think the policy objectives of bus gates are to improve public transport, and that's what it does. So whatever review we may or may not do, it needs to consider that that's why it was in. It's also part of the requirements under the Clean Air Zone. We need to obviously factor those two things. I think also the presence of the bus gate and the closure of Prince Street Bridge are not really linked in that it doesn't really affect westbound journeys to Spike Island in the sense that the bus gate on Cumberland Road doesn't. Obviously, the closure of Prince Street Bridge only affects those westbound journeys. So it will come out in terms of the modelling that we do, what the impact of the Prince Street Bridge closure is, and we'll obviously take a view based on what those findings are.
You're looking pensive, Nick. I think I'm happy to accept that the modelling will at least give us some more information, and I think we're going to urge the modelling to think about possible mitigations for the cumulative impact on Spike Island. So probably run a couple of scenarios around that. Is that good enough, or did you want to carry on?
So is that part of the proposal then? Or do we need to sort of add it in?
I mean, the proposal will be to model the impact of Prince Street Bridge. I don't think there's any intent to model the impact of Prince Street Bridge and a removal of the bus gate. I think the bus gate is there for, as I say, for other reasons, and it's not something we would propose under part of this scheme. I think we need to take a view about the impact on Spike Island of the closure of Prince Street Bridge, and whatever that may turn up, we will discuss. But I wouldn't have thought we would. The project is not intending on removing any existing bus gate provision.
David.
Thank you, Chair. Pete, is there any modelling for when the Prince Street Bridge was actually shut to motor vehicle traffic back in 2015-16? And was there any sense that the world ended at that point?
Yeah, I mean, I can't quite. I mean, Sean, you may. I can't remember if you were the traffic manager in 2015 or not. Perhaps not. I mean, I certainly. I think the vast majority of usage of Prince Street Bridge, as says in the report, is pedestrian. The main issue on Prince Street Bridge is one of pedestrian safety. The vehicular traffic over the bridge is relatively small, but as per discussion with that we've had, there is an impact that diversion of that traffic will have an impact, and obviously we will model what that impact is, but as Sean says, he's obliged to tell you that it will have an impact. We'll model that impact. The context, of course, is that this, we are trying to affect modal shift throughout Bristol with lots of different schemes in CRSTS. So, we would hope that will be mitigating, any diversionary effect resulting from Prince Street Bridge. And I don't recall there being any significant problem associated in 2015. The main impact would probably be on buses around Redcliffe Roundabout, and I don't remember that being a particular issue at the time. So, I wouldn't assume that to be a big problem.
Thank you for that answer. I agree with it. Considering this is a £500,000 investment in itself, which qualifies as a key decision, and we've just found out that the money doesn't need to be spent till 2028. Will the designs for any changes to Prince Street Bridge be actually coming back to the committee so that not only this committee but ward members for both Hotwells and Harbourside and Central can buy into this decision, please?
Yeah, so the current paper seeks approval to progress the delivery of it. So that would imply that it wouldn't necessarily return to committee, but I think it's entirely up to the committee to determine whether it would like to. As you say, there is a bit more time in the programme that should be able to facilitate that, but that is, I guess, a decision for yourselves.
David.
So did you pick up on that? Can we decide to bring it back to the committee?
I think that would be an amendment to what we've actually got in front of us.
Is that not something that could come to PCCB with ward members present?
That's just what Alex has suggested, is that we would make sure that we keep this as it is, but we bring this to a policy chairs committee briefing with ward members and any members of this committee that would like to come. So I think that would be a good way of making sure we've got the safeguards in place that you're looking for.
That's an excellent compromise, thank you.
Okay. Can we formally note that, because that's going to be important in the future. Graham was next.
Sorry, is PCCB a decision-making body?
Probably not constitutionally, but what we're looking for is safeguards so that at that time we can direct officers.
PCCB could decide to bring it to committee.
Yeah, okay. Ultimately, I don't think it's a decision-making body in itself, but given that it's in consultation with the chair of the Transport Connectivity Committee, whoever that is at the time, I would expect that if the PCC directs them not to authorise that delegation to be taken, then that would then trigger it to come to committee. I'm going to go to Graham next, and then I've got Kaz and then Tim.
Thank you, Chair. I'm always uncomfortable agreeing something which hasn't been modelled, and I hope that's not going to be a regular occurrence, because I think the modelling has to be done not just regarding the closure of Prince Street, but also in terms of the bigger picture of the other changes in the area to make sure that there is still the expeditious flow of traffic. I believe, as I mentioned at the agenda setting, the key risk of this expeditious movement of traffic is buried in paragraph or point 10 on the 4th or 5th page down, and I think we should be bringing the key risks up to the top for papers anyway. In terms of history, I was one of the councillors, along with Councillor Galandris, who fought to keep Prince Street Bridge open back in the day. So, but I do understand that obviously with the changes to Baldwin Street and the huge investment in the Bascule Bridge in particular, that there shouldn't be any real need to be digging up that bridge for many years now. So I don't know what sort of time frame we have on the longevity of that bridge. And there was one other point, and just a general point that, you know, we hear about the impact, the disproportionate impact on people in areas which are economically poorer, and yet most of this money is being spent in the central areas again. So we need to maybe have a plan for the future active travel funds to make sure the money is spread out across the city. Thank you.
I think that's a point well made. I did note that this was scored by, I think, WECA and Active Travel England. We took a number of proposals forward to them, and this is the two that the delivery and the development, one of the two that scored the highest. And so we were kind of more or less mandated to follow these ones through. Is that okay, Graham?
It is, thank you. But I think the point needs to be noted that you're always going to get the issue of probably the areas that are going to score the highest are going to be the central areas, those with the most footfall and things like that. And maybe we need to have a sensible discussion. Maybe it can form part of the road traffic or the road safety task and finish group, just to think how we can ensure that the whole city can benefit from these changes. Thank you.
I think the other thing that would be really helpful is when we bring a movement plan, that will set up our aspiration for both sort of bus and active travel networks. And once we've got that in place, it would be a lot easier for us to identify the gaps in our current active travel network that's going to make the biggest bang for our buck and make the biggest changes for people. And that hopefully will be across the city, not just, like you say, in the city centre. I'm going to move on. I think Kaz and then Tim are next in the queue, and then Cam.
Yeah, great that we've got some active travel funding and you've identified some projects. I've got 2 points, I guess. One is actually building on what Councillor Morris said, about Bristol Central. I do represent, putting my sort of Southmead hat on, looking at the sort of demographic of Bristol Central. It's very focused in terms of got a high number of young people compared to the rest of the city. And the report does mention residents in areas of high levels of deprivation. I do think that's something we need to think about in terms of active travel. And kind of expanding on that, when we look at one of the projects you were talking about, a behaviour change programme, and we go back to language here, which was come up in public forum. If I go to people in Southmead and say, we're spending money on a behaviour change programme, and try to sell that to them, what does that actually mean? So those are my 2 points, is language and the point about looking at areas of deprivation beyond just the central parts of the city.
Thank you, that's a point well made. When we, way back when we had a neighbourhood renewal fund under the previous new Labour government, we made sure that all of our bikeability training and all the investment into schools was in the areas of greatest deprivation, because I thought, and I think that was a really wise thing, and I think that's something that we should bear in mind and continue to do going into the future. So thanks, I think that's...
Can I just follow up on that one, though? You mentioned bikeability. It came up in public forum about our pavements. Just basic things like pavements could be regarded as active travel. We don't want to be tripping over bad pavements.
Yep, agreed. So, got Tim. Okay, Cam.
So, regarding the Bath Road bridges, I want to share Tim's sentiments earlier regarding how important that scheme is. And I'm saying that as a Knoll councillor. Obviously, it links up with the Wells Road that goes through my ward. And yeah, I share what Tim said. about how much of an impact that could have. I just do have a couple of comments around that project. Firstly, in the papers, it mentions the possibility of new bridges being part of that scheme, which great if it's possible to have new infrastructure for that, but also I'd like us to consider possibly cheaper options around reallocating road space on the existing bridges. There is 7 lanes of road traffic there, so do you think that could be a possibility? And then my second comment was just around, obviously this is for the active travel, it's coming from the active travel fund, so it's specifically focused on that, but just ensuring that we're considering it in a wider context of, the Temple Quarter works and everything that's going on around Temple Meads, and also considering sort of the number 2 bus transport corridor work that's ongoing. Obviously, the focus on that right now is on the Park Street area, but there's been consultations in the past around other parts of that route, around Temple Meads and the Wells Road, just making sure it's all considered as a whole, not in silos. Yeah, that's it. Thanks.
Yeah, I think obviously there's some Bath Road proposals as well, and yes, absolutely, these need to be all well knitted together to make sure we get in, and the Southern Gateway development as well. So yes, that's all. That will all be part of it. And yes, as far as optioneering is concerned, the intent would be to try and do the quickest and best value solution first. I think obviously Bath Bridges is just an area of particular sensitivity around congestion. So, but there'll be optioneering as part of the development process.
I'm going to move the recommendations of the report, bearing in mind that we've taken an action that we will have a sort of safeguard in there that this committee and board members will be able to review and discuss the designs. Could anyone second this? Does anyone want to second this? So Tim. And so all of those voting for the recommendations, please put up your hands now. That's everyone. Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Okay, so officers Alex and Pete, that is now embedded in the minutes, and we are definitely going to make sure that we have a safeguard moment when we look at the designs and the modelling before I exercise before the chair of this committee, whomsoever that may be, gets to exercise their delegated authority. At the moment, I'm going to keep to the language in this report, which is the chair of the Transport and Connectivity Committee. So now, agenda item 9, Avon Fixed Bridge, which the purpose of this report is to approve the spend to assess the bridge and design the works required to keep the Avon Fixed Bridge safely operational, ensuring the Highways Authority is discharging its statutory duty in this matter. This is a key decision report as it relates to a decision affecting 2 or more awards, but actually, given that it's actually bang on the £500,000 key decision financial trigger, I think this would have been brought in any case. So I'm going to invite Sean. There's a phenomenal amount of detail in a very comprehensive engineering report, some of which may be very, very impenetrable to some people. I'm not sure there's any way of putting that into plain English. So maybe you can do your best shot of summarising what our decision is today.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, apologies. My engineers do like to write a technical report, as I'm sure you can understand. So Avon Fixed Bridge is a bridge which actually a lot of people don't realise they actually drive over. It's right next to the Plimsoll Bridge. So obviously when they built the harbour back in the 1800s, the new cut was built, and obviously then when Cumberland Basin was built in the 1950s, they had to build a bridge across the new cut as well as the swing bridge at Plimsoll. So this is purely about the Avon, what's known as the Avon Fixed Bridge, which is right next to Plimsoll, and it goes across the new cut. Is part of Brunel Way. And as I say, you wouldn't know you're driving across the bridge unless you actually knew it was there. The bridge is built in, should we say, construction which we would not necessarily build in today's standards, which means that we do have to monitor it and look after it. It is what's known as a pre-stress beam bridge, so basically the concrete structure is under stress, and we need to make sure that that bridge stays competent. So that we've done some recent inspections last year. From those inspections, we know we need to now do a full structural assessment. There may be outcomes from that. We do not know at this point in time. That's the whole point of doing the structural inspection. So this report is to basically allow us to spend the money which was approved at full council and is in the budget to carry on and undertake that important health and safety work so that we can make sure that the bridge remains safe for all users of the highway.
And I think probably manage its decline.
Its decline. I mean, like I say, we need to investigate. We need to understand where we are before we actually come out and say exactly what's wrong. I don't want to say it's bad, it's going to be bad, or it's good, or anyway, because we need the technical information, and that is what this is all about, is in allowing us to get that technical information so that my chartered structural engineers can actually make those informed decisions on best way forward, and then, if needed, to inform the committee going forward on best way forward, if you see what I mean, from that advice and assessments.
So, I'm going to do this the more traditional way. We're going to do questions first and then comments afterwards. So, any questions? Emma.
Yeah, thank you. It was a lot of information. I did quite like the engineering pictures from the 60s because I didn't understand them, but they were very interesting. So yeah, what you were saying about how this is built by things that you wouldn't build it this way anymore because it's quite old, understandably. Obviously, like just the type of traffic going over bridges like this that were built many years ago, where vehicles are possibly twice the weight of what they used to be, 50 odd years ago. Is there ways now that when you build this bridge, you can kind of sort of future-proof in changes to vehicles, changes to amounts of traffic, things like that?
Yeah, so today's design standards would be very, very different to what we've built there. As I said, we wouldn't build a bridge in this way nowadays because it's very difficult to maintain. There's actually legislation we have to work to, which is called CDM. We call it CDM, but it's Construction Design Management Regulations, which are sort of sister regulations to the Health and Safety at Work Act, which ensures that we have to build things which we can maintain, we can access, we can see, and we can look after, and it's built to standards which will take a 44-ton pinpoint load, which is what the standards are today.
Sure. Sorry, can I just clarify that? So yeah, obviously when you're building a new bridge, you will, but this is obviously, you're not building the new one from scratch at the moment. In terms of actually repairing it, are you able to bring in some of those techniques to...
Yes.
Yeah, great.
So we can use things like carbon fibre rods and things like that, if you see what I mean, which bring, where the steel is identified as corroding within the concrete, we can bring in things like carbon fibre rods and so on like that to... Hammersmith Bridge in London is built very similar, is a similar type of construction, and they came up with a solution to span it with plates and so on and so forth. So that's the next steps, if you see what I mean. Yeah. We need to understand.
You need to understand what you need to do.
What's going on first before we can actually make those decisions.
Great, thank you.
So the next up with a question, I think, was Kaz, and then Cam.
Sure. Thank you for this report. As an engineer, I really enjoyed seeing all these engineering drawings and these photographs of a structure that has defects. And I'm managing my decline as well, slowly. There may be an ultimate failure for me at some point, but maybe I need some carbon fibre. Yeah. But on the failure part of this, how much? My question is going to be, how much confidence have you got that you're going to be able to get the data to understand that there isn't a catastrophic failure of this bridge? Because you talk about inspection techniques and you talk about fantastic things like muon tomography, which is cosmic rays apparently, which are, absolutely, that's a new one on me as well. But I know as an engineer, when it comes to inspecting things, they can be very difficult to inspect them, and you don't always get the full picture. So how much confidence have you got in the sort of general inspection and it's going to be safe?
So the full structural assessment will be done in accordance with the guidance and regulations, and we will have to, should we say, if what that tells us will be comprehensive. However, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm absolutely 100%, because the way this bridge is constructed, it's constructed with what's known as half joints. Now, because the way it's been built, you can't actually get inside and see inside those actual half joints because one overlaps the other and you just physically can't see it. So the reality is there is always going to be an element of risk, but there's an element of risk, to be blunt, in everything my department does on a daily basis in relation to potholes, inspections and defects on the network. Road safety, we said earlier, and made the comment around, you know, sometimes it feels like we've got to wait for an accident to happen. So the reality is, yes, we will do the best we can, which will cover the authority to say we did all we could as an authority to make sure that that bridge was safe. But I can't sit here and say the stuff which I can't see, I don't know. But we will do what we can.
Yeah, just a quick question. What are the timeframes around carrying out this assessment and, you know, getting it sorted, as Emma just said? What are the timeframes for the assessment?
Within the next 6 to 12 months. The team are already working, shall we say, I've had them working in the background on the basis that I felt that the committee would probably support this. We've been actually getting on with it in the background. The preparation works.
Right, thank you.
Nick and David, are there questions? Because Tim's hand went up very, very quickly and then went down again when I said, can we do questions, then comments? So Nick and David, if you've got questions, then please.
Thanks. Just looking at the bullet points and the works required. So we're paying for an assessment of the bridge and a nice big scaffolding platform to let that happen. All makes sense. So that scaffold platform should allow us to undertake critical repairs, it says at bullet point 3. Bullet point 4 is the designing of strategic repairs. I don't know that we've got a list of critical repairs, or it's not in budget to do those critical repairs, or maybe it is. And strategic repairs, would it be impossible to design a scaffold structure that could accommodate strategic repairs being undertaken from it, as well as critical repairs?
So obviously we needed to go and do the inspection. That was again, we may be back. If those repairs or that structural assessment informs us that the work is bigger than what the initial and general inspections we've done, where we do have photographs and there is spalling of concrete, and we know, but obviously we're going to be more intense. What we do, so that we can understand the state of the concrete, state of the steel, we actually core into it. We understand how much calcium, if it's calcifying, how much steel is rusting, how many strings in the steel ropes, which are how many of those 2mm strings have actually rusted through. We can put harmonics on the bridge so that we can hear. So all that information will come in. So yes, you are correct. We may be coming back asking that we have to do strategic repairs, but obviously whilst we've got the scaffold there, we will take the opportunity to undertake anything which we believe is critical.
So to permit that, should we not be setting aside a budget for critical repairs? And is there also a check, hopefully you've done this and you can reassure, that the strategic repairs which are defined in the principal inspection report are of that the scaffolding has been designed in such a way that it could deliver the strategic repairs that have already been identified?
I would need to take that away to the structural engineers to understand the full detail of the strategic repairs. But obviously we will always try to take the opportunity of best use. If we've put a scaffold up, we would make the best use of that scaffold. But like I said, until we actually start undertaking some of those intrusive assessments to understand the structural viability of the bridge, we can't say whether there's strategic repairs or we're going to need more funding. And I also don't want to set aside funding which could be used now for something else if in the future, you know, it then wasn't required. because as you know from my life cycle modelling and other pressures within my team, that the funding is we need to try and spend it as best we can where we can.
I think this is very much Donald Rumsfeld's known unknowns, and we're trying to get to a place where we know what those unknowns are. And so I think it's very difficult. I think we're talking very hypothetical situations here.
There is some information available, and I want to make sure that we have used that information that we do have to try and reduce the potential of building a big scaffolding, taking down a big scaffolding, and putting up an even bigger scaffolding later.
I think Sean's given you that assurance, Nick. I think he's done the best he can under the current knowns to give you that assurance.
We would certainly do that, and I would go as far as to say, if my structural engineers come to me and said, Sean, we found this whilst we've got the scaffold up there, then it's my job as the head of service to raise it with the chair, raise it with my directors and say, can I quickly move this budget from this budget, and then we'll come back to this to resolve it. As I said, we will always, highways maintenance, always try and make the best they can if they're undertaking something at that point in time across my service.
David.
Thank you, Chair. On pages 212, 214, 216 and 218, there are a load of costs for repairs, suggested repairs to the bridge. Have they actually been done, and what budget will they actually be coming from?
I'm just trying to find those pages. So obviously, as I said, we've done some inspections already. So the part of that was asking the consultants to give us a rough estimate of what it would have cost to undertake those repairs.
So these repairs haven't actually been done?
No, not to date.
That's useful clarification. And in the worst case of us having to make massive repairs to this bridge or possibly replace it, would the cost be entirely borne by Bristol City Council, or could we go cap in hand to National Highways, considering it is part of the strategic road network?
I can answer that. I asked that question.
Good.
It's our asset, it's our responsibility. I think that's the answer.
It is, but we will go. There are opportunities for us to look for funding elsewhere. We're currently looking at a strategic infrastructure ask to go to central and to regionally. So yeah, and it's obviously going to be one of my highest priorities for challenge funds and things of that nature where we can put forward potential schemes.
Thank you for the clarification.
I'm going to move on to Tim, whose hand went up first, but very graciously went down again when I said we're going to do questions first. So Tim.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I think it's important to draw people's attention to the fact that we're spending £500,000 here just to find out what's wrong with this bridge. We're not spending £500,000 to fix it, and the amount that may well be needed could be far in excess of that. It just shows you how much or how little you get for your money these days. You know, people think £500,000 is a lot of money, but yeah, it's not. Just to Emma's point about this bridge and what it was designed for, I suspect we all thought that cars would be flying over this bridge by the time when it was built in the 1950s. But I was just going to draw members' attention to the alternative options and the do nothing option, basically. You know, if anybody feels that is a suitable option, then good luck to them. But I don't think we have any option here other than to go ahead with spending this money, which is already in the budget. So I think we can get on.
So on that, thank you. Oh, sorry, Dom.
Yeah, I mean, we do need to spend this money, obviously, but I just wondered, you know, is the current administration committed to spending infinite amounts of money on replacing a 1950s car-based solution? I mean, at what point do we say, look, this money could be spent on active travel, it could be spent on tunnel, it could be spent underground, it could be spent on public transport. At what point do we make that kind of perhaps more ideological decision, or do we just go on and on and on, assuming that what was good for the 1950s is good for now?
I think the simple answer to the question is no, we will not spend infinite amounts of money because we don't have infinite amounts of money. I think the more nuanced thing is that, as noted actually in the Prince Street Bridge report, making the transition to a much more public transport and active travel-based city is a difficult thing to do. And meanwhile, we need to accommodate car drivers. This is part of the strategic road network. We have a duty to maintain this as part of that strategic road network. And
we have the duty to maintain a strategic road network, not to retain every element of it. But yeah, have you engaged with Western Harbour on the transport issues and the need for, more active travel? Radical.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you look at the Western Harbour proposals, there is a proposal to replace this bridge. And I think it's right that to everyone's surprise, the Plimsoll Bridge was thought to be just about all right with enough remedial work, but this one was clearly not going to be. And I certainly would think that that if we're going to replace this bridge, we would look to the Western Harbour kind of land value and all the other development management controls that we can put in place to support us in so doing, to replace this bridge. Sean's desperate to come in as well.
Yeah, just say we working closely with the Western Harbour team to make sure that the proposals knit together. Should we say the public consultation come out that it was preferable to keep the same alignment? So that is what is part of the reason why we're now looking more intensely at the bridge, because if the alignment, say for Western Harbour, was different, then maybe that would be a different conversation and our assessment, and obviously long term. But at the moment, the proposals for Western Harbour is to keep the same alignment. As Ed alluded, Plimsoll Bridge is mechanically appears to be quite robust, and because that is big engineering mechanically, electrically it does need some work. But that are the current proposals, so we do need to make sure that we're maintaining this bridge, and it is part of the arterial network for the M5 as well. If there's an accident on the Avon Bridge, this is the relief for it.
We're really opening up now because I've got Graham, then David, then Emma, then Cam, then Kaz. So I'm going to suggest that we all bear in mind Tim saying basically do nothing is not an option. But I'm going to try and remember. So it's Graham, then David, then Emma, then Cam, then Kaz.
Yeah, very quickly, just to say I support these proposals. I think we can't do nothing. We have to find out what state the bridge is in, and once we know, we can then agree the way forward. But for now, we have to do something because we've seen what happens when there's catastrophic failure on this design.
Thanks. David.
Thank you, Chair. Given that National Highways is going to be spending hundreds of millions of pounds over the next 10 years renovating the M32 viaduct in Eastville, I don't think there is an appetite in Westminster for such a dramatic change on direction of providing a resilience in the strategic road network by converting the Avon fixed bridge into an active travel corridor. I don't think there's that appetite from Westminster. If we were to propose that, we would be laughed at.
Do you want to come back on that, Don? With your microphone? Okay. So, Emma?
Thank you. Yeah, the catastrophic failure I think we need to take very seriously. Also, just in response to that, this is a route I know very well because I'm from Long Ashton, so I use this route a lot. It's a very active bus route as well, and buses are heavy, and this isn't just about private vehicles, Don. This is about buses as well, and I think we need to spend the money to keep it safe. So yes, I think we absolutely should be spending this.
Cam?
Not infinite, obviously.
No, Kaz?
We're just picking up on the Western Harbour and a couple of themes. I guess the bridge would last a long time if there wasn't a heavy load on it. Is that correct?
clearly, all bridges and all roads, all infrastructure gets affected by HDVs, buses, so on. So yeah, obviously there's option. If you lighten the load on the bridge, then the bridge will last longer.
And so just my thoughts on Western Harbour, you could turn it into an active travel bridge and perhaps have an alternative way of getting across that part of the city, but that's a whole different discussion.
I think that's a whole different discussion, and I'm absolutely assured that the entire Western Harbour proposals were actually centred around the future of the Plimsoll Bridge and this bridge, and actually have been informed by the sort of initial inspections of these bridges. And I think if we went back to the late 1950s and the early 1960s, then probably virtually nobody in this committee would have signed off on the Avon Fixed Bridge, the Plimsoll Bridge, or indeed the M32. But we are where we are, and there's only so much we can do to reshape our city as things stand. And National Highways have made it absolutely clear, and I'm sure you know this, Don, from your previous role, that they consider there is no other option other than to refurbish the M32, unlike some of the river restoration projects we've seen in Utrecht and in South Korea, which are frankly inspirational, but not happening in this city, whether we like it or not. I'm going to move this report now because I think we've exhausted just about all of the things, despite the very, very voluminous engineering that's already been presented us. So I'm going to ask if I'm going to move the recommendations to the report. Graham, thank you for seconding it. And can we take a vote now if we accept the recommendations? So put your hand up. That is carried unanimously. I'm going to suggest we have a 5-minute break, and Graham is obviously endorsing that. So back here, shall we say at 5:02? Getting to lose my way now. Agenda item 10, Concorde Way Cycle Scheme. The purpose of the report is that the Concorde Way Cycle Scheme has been accepted into the CRSTS Settlement Over Programme as proposed by WECA, including the submission of the FADFAF to seek development funding. This is, so we are formally asking the committee to agree the change in funding source. This is a non-key decision update report, and I think it's really important to say that there was a concern by particularly the ward members of this, that we would, if we'd have taken this decision today, it would have been, effectively, we'd have been publishing papers before the consultation finished, and I think that was and that was of concern. And I think it's absolutely right that we are now just noting and accepting that we're going to switch funding sources rather than rush to delegating or getting to a full business case and getting with all those delegations. So instead, we're going to bring the full business case to a committee in the spring. So I'm going to ask Pete, sorry, brain freeze there for a moment, to introduce and outline the report.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, Ed, you've kind of summarised the report. It's not a long report. It is sort of administrative in the sense that we've been asked to get formally approved the change of funding from investment fund to CRSTS. As the chair said, there is a scheme that is in development. Obviously, it's been engaged on very recently. This report does not explicitly seek any approval of any scheme or any other delegations of that sort. So it is about just approving the change in the funding source. And as the chair says, you know, the actual scheme will be developed following the feedback from the recent consultation and then brought back to a future committee. So, yeah, this report is hopefully relatively straightforward in the sense that it's just agreeing the change of the funding source from the combined authority.
And David, as it's your ward, and you expressed these concerns about the sort of sequencing of the different bits of the programme. I don't know if you wanted to say anything or ask any questions.
I just wanted to thank the officers for proceeding in this fashion, because it allows us so much more transparency about how the decision is made and gives residents the opportunity to actually contribute to the designs properly. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions? Anyone want to say anything? Nope. Shall we move? I'm going to move straight to... I move the recommendations of the report, and would someone like to second this? David, unsurprisingly. So let's move to a vote. Do we accept the report recommendations? That is carried unanimously. Thank you. Let's move on. Great, thank you. We've made up some of the time that we lost on the Avon fixed bridge. So next is our corporate risk report. The purpose of this report is to provide an update on current significant strategic risks relevant to Transport Connectivity Committee, and particularly note that this was the progress in managing the risks and actions being taken as at Q1. So there's always this delay that we have in terms of this coming through from the corporate risk register and it being looked at by Strategy and Resources Committee. Nick, I noticed at full council that you urged all committees to take a really good hard look at the risks we're managing across the piece, and I'm really pleased that not only we've got a bit more time than we normally have, because this normally comes at the end of a packed agenda, and we've had a little bit of a lighter agenda this time, but we've also got not only you, Nick, but also I think Tim and David are both members of Audit Committee, so I think that's a real positive. And we've also got the chair of WECA Audit here in David. So I think we're probably very well equipped as a committee to start looking at this report and actually give it, whilst it's still daylight, some time at this committee. So I'm going to ask Alex to introduce and outline the report and take it from there.
Thank you, Chair. So I would say that this is a very similar report that was brought to you earlier in the year at a previous committee in April, and actually the appendices provide very similar information as well. So as the chair has said, this is up until the end of Q1. I think and the two main risks that are shown in the appendices again presented in the same way. I think it's worth acknowledging that since the end of Q1, you've received papers at this committee over the summer months, in particular around, for example, some of our harbour assets, so that one would expect that in a future presentation of our corporate risks, that there may well be a different assessment of, for example, the risk identified in relation to the condition of our assets. So noting the point about the time lag, you yourself as a committee have considered papers that are germane to the risks here, as well as obviously the CRSTS delivery programme. So I think it's probably, to enable you to have a debate, there's not really an awful lot more to say. Things haven't moved on in respect of what's presented in front of you, except to say, of course, this is a very dynamic tool, and the teams here regularly report on their risks as they do across the council, and so in the future I wouldn't be surprised if you see an adjustment bearing in mind what you yourself have considered.
So, Nick, I'm very pleased to see your hand going up so quickly.
Yep.
Nick, then David.
I've read all 3 pages of this paper. So CR58 is described as a risk which is impacted, is the word, or materialised rather? Yes, materialised risk. It's happening, chunks of river wall are falling into the river. So would you categorise the likelihood of that as being likely or almost certain?
If I may, I would like to defer that to our head of highways, who would give a more informed view than me.
Yes, Councillor Coombs, you're absolutely correct. And as Alex alluded, obviously we report more often than what the actual report lands up here. And I have just changed that to almost certain, literally in the end of last month. So that has now changed the report. Obviously, as it will come forward into the future, the next reporting, you will see an increase. And because I've changed that risk from likely to almost certain, which is the next level up. And it is not only based on the river walls, but it's based on the fact that in the last few months we've had the harbour dock gates, emergency works were required. And talking to my insurance and risk colleagues, they've informed me that whilst it's kind of getting hidden slightly, because we have robust inspection regimes and so on in place, that whilst we're not costing the council anymore in relation to compensations, claims and what have you, we have had actually an increase in claims. So putting all those different elements together, the river walls, the dock gates, the increase in claims, even though we're not spending any more money, if you're not spending out because of our inspection regimes are keeping us robust, made me make the decision as senior officer to increase that at the end of August.
Thank you. I think that's probably the correct rating, and what's presented in the report is sort of internally inconsistent, but I'm glad that's been corrected for next time. And that would then put it in the top box. This is now the council's most important risk.
I think Sean's nodding. This is now the council's most important risk. Highest rated risk. David.
Thank you. I've got a couple of questions. One of them is about CRR58, so we'll stay on that one. Why is the risk tolerance for that particular risk so low, considering it does, one of the consequences is loss of life? I would have thought we would be doing everything to not tolerate a risk to life.
So there are
You might.
Apologies, Councillor. There are various categories as you go through financial, health and safety risk. HIT ticks the highest on a number of reputational, should we say. Those are what actually make the score at the bottom. The tolerances, as you say, we wouldn't tolerate, but the health and safety is picked up from a different category, not necessarily the tolerance category. Yeah, so we don't want to tolerate this.
Yes, I understand that.
So the tolerance rating is low, which means we
I
don't.
can't off the top of my head.
But that means we don't tolerate. We're not tolerating it.
Right. Okay. Let's make sure we all understand that. My other question is: we're only seeing 2 risks here. How many risks is actually on the transport and connectivities paper, and how often are they reviewed?
So, intensive service, myself and Adam and senior officers would review those risks on a monthly basis. They move, and we only report the highest risks at a certain score to the committee and to senior leadership. I can't tell you how many there are. That particular risk is actually made up from a number of risks that are sub-risks which sit behind it, if you see what I mean, which informs that risk. So, yeah, like I said, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head the exact number.
I've just been having a chat with Alex here, and I think it's fair that at the moment we only see the sort of 2 that meet a particular threshold set corporately, and that's the way that is generated. I think Alex has offered now to take away and look at how we present something which maybe shows us a bigger picture of all the risks we're managing, even those that don't actually meet some sort of corporate threshold. I think it's something that Alex needs to have a little think about, and colleagues need to have a think about, because we don't want to be overwhelmed or inundated with data, but we do. I think it's a fair challenge to see what's kind of bubbling under the threshold that comes to this committee.
I think that would be really useful context to make sure that it's a question that we should be asking: are you covering all the bases, and are you making sure that all the correct risks are bubbling to the top? Thank you.
And I think also it'll show us how some things that are sort of quite likely and quite probable and quite impactful are being managed in an appropriate way to keep them from meeting that threshold. Because I think that's kind of that's maybe something that would give us some reassurance and help us do our due diligence to see that although we only actually certain things reach a threshold, the activity that's in place to make sure that things are managed to keep them below that threshold, which is exactly the point of this. Sean.
Yeah, just to say, most of our risks, should we say, would emanate from inspections and things out there. And as I said earlier, it's slightly being hidden in claims and what have you, because we have good inspection regimes. We have inspection regimes which have been audited and have been approved and are in line with national guidance and so on. So that obviously keeps the risk low, because they're risk-based approaches which the guys are accredited, all my inspectors are all accredited, trained and so on. So we do actively manage risk every single day with our inspections and everything else.
I think it's a question, be careful what you wish for if you want to see more risks, because we're actually doing a really good job of managing them and putting in all the sort of procedures to do that. Nick, and then Tim.
I think there probably is a fair argument that CRR 58 could be broken up into its constituent risks, as the impact of a multi-storey car park collapsing on the people in it is clearly absolutely critical. Many lives could be lost. But the likelihood of a multi-storey car park collapsing, I think, is much reduced because of our maintenance and inspections. Whereas the river wall, we know that's falling into the river. This is now a near certain event, but the likelihood of death arising from it is not to the same extent as a car park collapse. So we've multiplied together the 2 worst case scenarios and reached this is the most critical risk in the council's register. But that doesn't give us a granular view of where to target resources.
Tim?
I agree with Nick. I know. I did tell certain other people never to say that in public. Yeah, just on CRR 43, we've discussed before about the risk of delivering everything in CRSTS, but it seizing up the city because we're delivering it all at the same time. And I'm wondering if that is a separate risk from CRR 43, or whether it is also contained within that risk. And just as a follow-up to that, I believe at the May meeting it was agreed that we would see a paper on how we're going to manage that process. And am I right in thinking that's coming to the next committee meeting?
I'm going to answer that last bit of the question with a simple word, yes. It's on the full plan, and that's the intention. And I don't know, Alex, if you want to talk about the other element of the risk there.
Thank you, Chair. So that's correct. If you were to see more of the risks that we manage that we don't report here, you would see that raised, and the mitigating action that we pursue. And it's fair to say that along with our neighbouring authorities and the combined authority, this is something we are looking at all the time. One of the constraints identified in this risk is around March 2027, and you know, we're always in discussions about what can be delivered by then, what will be delivered beyond then, and how we manage that, not just from a delivery and financial perspective, but of course the impact on the network as well. And it's something that we're acutely aware of, and you'll see that in the forthcoming paper.
I'm also quite pleased that the DFT recently published some guidance about the sort of transition from CRSTS into TCR funding. And I think it's fair to say that there's a fair amount of flexibility within that guidance, so that that will certainly help mitigate some of this. The other thing that I'm going to say is, and I actually spoke to Alex the other day, and I've challenged directors at both WECA and in First Bus and in our own authority, is that we're doing, the paper that we're bringing will show that we're doing an awful lot to manage all the different contracts in a very appropriate way, to bring some specialists in to help us manage the network and the interrelationship between those contracts, which is great from a back office point of view. But I've asked all of the bus operator and both of the authorities managing CRSTS to think about the front end. So, for example, if works are delayed or if they're finished early, making sure that we've got really good information out to bus passengers and to the travelling public, and making sure that that information is updated quickly, regularly, and ideally, as and when roadworks go on and come off the network, that we've actually got people at the bus stops directing people for those couple of days to make sure that they know what their temporary arrangements are and that they're coming off. So I think it's really important that we're doing all the back office stuff, but I'm challenging that we do the front office stuff as well, because the travelling public kind of co-create traffic with us. Tim?
Yeah, and just on that point, I just wanted to say thanks for we had an update this week to say that from now on we're going to get weekly updates on roads that are closed that impact bus services for more than a week, I think it is. I really look forward to that, reading that every Friday or whenever. But no, that's going to be a really useful part of being able to let people know how things are impacted. Thanks.
Emma.
Thank you. Going back to CR58 again. Serendipitously, I had an email this week which you very kindly answered me about, which you said was about life cycling, and it has made me think. I think this is quite a big sort of topic, and covers a lot of things, as you say, from what sounds quite catastrophic to sort of inconvenient. I think it would be quite useful, especially for like the task and finish group around road safety, if we could get some sort of detailing around things that are specifically where there is a specific risk around road safety and risk to life on carriageways, where we can maybe look at that in a little bit more detail. Would that be possible?
I have absolute reams of data. So,
right, great, lovely.
Yeah, so, I mean, we undertake condition surveying of the entire network every single year.
Yeah.
So, that informs us. Also, data, a number of data sets we use, obviously, is it near a hospital or a school? All those feed into our programs. So, yes, that data is available, and how we prioritise our spend and our money is done purely through those data sets, which enable us to make sure that we're going to the places most in need.
Is it worth raising one more action to circulate to the committee the report we sent up at the end of June to the central government about the condition of our roads and how we're going about it?
It's online.
Okay.
So if you look online for the transparency report, that will show you exactly what is done. It was also in the slideshow to the area committees yesterday, in the late meeting I attended yesterday for the area committees, all member briefing. In that slideshow there's a link in there for the transparency report, which
good looking.
And at the end of October it's stage 2 for that.
Even more detail.
Even more detail is coming out at the end of October, which is
I think Sean's saying that we've got lots of data available, and that can be made available to the Road Safety Task and Finish Group.
Yes.
Given the fact that we want to get on with the Road Safety Task and Finish Group, I'm going to ask David as the chair and Mark as the sort of key enabler of that to make sure that we look at that in a proportionate way and get on with it and assure ourselves that we're doing the right things rather than maybe devoting an entire session to it. So
I think that sounds like a great idea. Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Sean.
I'm going to basically note, unless anyone else wanted to say anything, we note this report and move on. Thank you, and particularly thank you to members of Audit for taking us through some of that. That's reassuring to me. Finally, we have agenda item 12, which the purpose of this report is to note the update report following the 6-monthly work programme setting workshop in June. This is a report for information, but it really is also an opportunity to be transparent about how we've thought about what might be upcoming collectively and make decisions on that. So I'm going to ask Sam to introduce the report, and then Nick, I'll take your question first since you're hammered up so quickly.
Thank you, Chair. So this report is an update report for information. It's provided as an action following the workshop session in June, and it is for noting. And I will leave it there, actually, if that's okay.
So over to you, Nick.
Thank you. Unfortunately, I missed the session. I was probably at work. It was midweek. But I just wanted to emphasise two items here. Firstly, the Transforming City Regions forward plan. I've said before, and I'm glad it's now starting to come through, that we need to look at this holistically. What is it that we're trying to get out of this programme, especially as it now includes maintenance, and maintenance is very important to lots of the people that we represent, and also to look at how our schemes interact with each other for a movement plan across the city, which I now know is on the forward plan for, if not later this year, then early next year. And I think that's really important, that we have that holistic view of how our proposals interact with each other. Secondly, I just wanted to look at insourcing of highways maintenance, and it's unusual for me to be the left winger or the big state one in this chamber, but I understand that the Labour Cabinet have decided to outsource all of our highways work, and our Green Chair is endorsing that. So it's an odd position for me to say that I think that we could do a lot of this stuff in-house, especially white lining. Recently I was waiting 5 months for a patch of white line to be repainted on the A4018. So an A road going into our city didn't have a centre line for nearly half of a year because we couldn't find anyone who was willing to patch up the work of following resurfacing. White lining seems like the least complex of the the infrastructure jobs, and one that we could easily employ someone and a bit of equipment to do in-house, to keep going around painting white lines and yellow lines every day of the week, catching up on the massive backlog that we have. So that's what I would have said were I at the meeting a few months ago.
And it's a pity that Sean has just this moment left, because he could have commented on that. What I can say is when we came into administration in 2024, this procurement was already underway. And you stop procurement at your peril, because you're then possibly liable to costs that have already been expended by bidders. I'd also like to say that we had one crew doing lining. We now have 3, is what Sean tells me. And the challenge I've given him is, at the moment, he has them concentrating on a single area in order for efficiency. And the challenge I've given him is, how do we get a bit more reactive to, or responsive is probably a better word, to feedback from members where there's a crying need for white lines to be better reinstated. So it's something that I share your concerns around the lining. I'm not going to comment on the way in which it gets done, but I am going to comment on the way in which we respond to I am going to trying to improve the way it gets done, but the who undertakes that is something that I think we were pretty much underway already when we started. Don, I think it's fair that you come back on that.
Yeah, the procurement exercise, when I left it in May 2024, did not preclude a cohort of work being undertaken by an in-house operation. That was something I was specifically assured regarding. And I did pay a visit to South Gloss Direct Labour Organisation in Yate and had a chat with them, just as a way of really kind of opening up the possibilities for a discussion. To my mind, the road safety stuff is officer work that we should sign off by and large, get it done quickly. I think this is the kind of broader philosophical thing where we would better spend our time on this as a task and finish, in my own view. But I would be disappointed if this wasn't still something worth discussing.
I wasn't aware of that, and it's quite late in the day to be made aware of it. I do think that people could look at the other options considered when that decision was made back in, I think, January 2024, because I think that very much clearly laid out the rationale for why we do what we do, and we're doing what we why we do what we do. So
we hadn't been able to explore in enough depth anything else at that time. I mean, I was literally, as the paper was coming to Cabinet, I was going up to Yate and chatting to them, coming back chatting to Sean, etc. So, it wasn't developed enough to be able to, but I was assured that there would still be a place for discussing that and possibly implementing it with a narrow cohort of works of the type that Nicholas has described. We get those frustrations where a curbstone has fallen out of the pavement, and ETM can't do it for 6 months because they're not in the area. And you think, well, actually, there's loads of little jobs like that, and that's what people write to us about. The big projects tend to go without them saying very much. What really annoys them is the fact that curbstone keeps dropping out. It's either not done or it's not done. And it's, I could almost do some of them myself. It's quite frustrating as a local councillor.
I share your frustrations. I think we have to be very careful about what we say, particularly when Sean's not here, because I think we are very where there is an active danger, I think we're very responsive. Whether or not the work is done to the quality we would like is a different matter. I think in some ways it doesn't really matter who is providing the work, as long as we're satisfied that we're keeping on top of the quality of the work that's being done. Tim.
Yeah, just on that one in particular, I think it's important that we look at this to see, in the future what could be done, because things don't happen quickly, as we know, in local government. So if you don't start somewhere, then you'll never get to an end point. And I think there's a lot of agreement that not all outsourcing has been successful in this country over the last 20 years, we've seen, costs spiral in a lot of ways, and some of that is probably due to the fact that these companies have a bit of a monopoly on doing some of the work. So really pleased to see this in there. And I think, I don't want to, Sean's not here, but I'm pretty sure that I do remember Sean saying that our contracts give us some leeway to move away from private contractors at certain points if we decided to make that decision. But obviously, we need to go through this process of looking at the pros and cons and then making decisions which may be 4 or 5 years down the line. But you've got to start with a single step, as somebody once said. The other one is municipal bus companies. Also really pleased to see this in here. That's something else that was in our manifesto, obviously, but I think there's widespread agreement. We're planning to go up to Nottingham to see them soon, I believe, and they are one of the few municipal bus companies still running in the country, and an award-winning one as well. So we know that the landscape has changed a lot since the last time most local authorities ran their own bus companies. So what a municipal bus company might look like in the future could be different, could be part of a franchising system, who knows. But again, you've got to do the work, have a look at it, see what's possible in order to be able to make those kinds of decisions. So pleased to see both of those things in this programme.
Well, actually, strictly speaking, one of them isn't in the programme, but I think we'll have to revisit that when the next of these agenda setting workshops happens in December. So at the moment, there's one which says, I can't find the exact words, but it basically says the outcome from the work. Thank you. The outcome from the workshop is a policy options scoping paper should be provided for the next committee work planning session, which I'm assuming is in December, if there is available officer resource. I have asked the head of service, Adam, to provide that report, and on the assumption that there will be, it wouldn't be a huge piece of work and there will be officer resource available. I think the report that we've got more or less kicks the municipalisation of works back into touch. So I think we're going to have to revisit that again in December. So yes, we will be receiving.
It's in the report, even if it's the report.
It's in the report. It more or less says the offer at the moment is to circulate the options appraisal and provide a committee briefing on the new contracts, which includes social value aspects. So I think I'm very happy to revisit this back in December. Like you say, it could be several years, and it was Chairman Mao that said a journey of 10,000 miles starts with a single step. So we're definitely quoting from history at the moment. I'm going to... sorry? So I think for the moment, we have to go with the art of the possible. I've asked Adam to try and bring that paper that we agreed to the next meeting, and I think we need to really take this discussion back to that meeting, and it's a pity that Sean left just as but I'm really happy to revisit this discussion in December or whenever the next agenda setting meeting is. I'm going to assume that that's it now, and I've just lost my bet with Sam that we were going to finish at 7:30, and we've actually finished at, what's the exact time now?
7:31.
7:31, so I missed it by a minute. So thank you. Sorry? Yes, if only I'd been a bit more succinct, then I might have got to 7:30. The next meeting of the Transport Connectivity Policy Committee is 5 p.m. on the 23rd of October 2023. I look forward to seeing you all then. Good evening.